Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is SUKKAH Daf Chaf Aleph. Perhaps it would be wise to start again from the Mishnah Daf Chaf Amud Beis, beginning of the Perek, and take it from there. It says the Mishnah, Yoshin Tachas Amita beSukkah lo yotzei dei chiyvasa. If one chooses to sleep beneath a bed in his sukkah, he's not yotzei, Rashi explains, because there's an oil which is mafsik beinoi lesukkah. So he doesn't relate to the sukkah. He's not yotzei. Rabbi Yehuda, he disagrees, and he'll prove it with a story. In fact, noyhagin hayinu, it was our custom. Shayinu yishenim tachas hamita, we would sleep beneath a bed, bifnei haskenim, in the presence of the skenim, v'lo yomr lo davar, and nobody said a word. Apparently, even beneath a bed is acceptable. Rabbi Shimon, I'll support the Tanakama's version. In fact, there was a story, Ma sebet hevi avdoi Rabbi Gamliel. There's a story involving Tevi, the loyal servant of Rabbi Gamliel, who was also a learned fellow. He happened to be sleeping beneath a bed when the skenim were there. And Rabbi Gamliel turns to the skenim to praise his knowledgeable Eved, Re'isim Tavi Avdi. Did you notice my slave Tavi? Shu Talmud Chacham. Look, he's a Talmud Chacham. And he knows full and well that a Eved, just like an Isha, is pater from Sukkah because it's a time-related mitzvah, and an Eved has the same chiyuvim as an Isha. Therefore, he knows that he's pater. That's why he chose to sleep beneath a bed. And Taisus explains that this fellow Tavi was a Talmud Chacham. In fact, it means that he used to wear tefillin. But this time around, he decided to sleep beneath the bed, and Taisus explains, there were many guests there, many chachamim, and he wanted to make room in order to alleviate the crampiness, so he went ahead and he ended up under the bed. He didn't want to leave the sukkah because he wanted to listen in to the Divrei Torah being discussed by the chachamim, but he knew that he's pater, so he belongs under the bed. He got out of the way, and we learn from there, says the Gemara. This is Rabbi Shimon speaking. Although Rabbi Gamliel wasn't trying to teach anybody halachas, he was just speaking derech bedicha. Rashi says he was just making a light-hearted comment, praising his Eved for his expertise, for his knowledge in halacha. But says Rabbi Shimon, simply listening, overhearing this discussion between Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim, we conclude that in fact, if one sleeps beneath the bed, he's not Yaitse. So this is in support of the Tanakama Shita, who says Yoshin Tachas Amita. The Gemara will explain what's behind this machlekes, whether or not it constitutes a concern. Says the Gemara, but what's wrong? We're sleeping beneath a bed, v'aleka asara. You don't have an airspace of 10 tefachim beneath the bed, which is the minimum requirement to create a new reshus, to create a concern. Tirgama Shmuel interpreted the Mishnah to be speaking about b'mita asara. In fact, this bed was high off the ground and featured a 10 tefach airspace. On the topic of oil, says the Gemara Tanan Hasam, we actually have a Mishnah in Maseches HaOlos discussing the concept of an oil over tumah. So if you have a roof, a tent, over something which is tummy, that oil now distributes the tumah, it spreads the tumah all throughout that roofed area. Anything found beneath that oil is tummy as well. And the Mishnah provides some examples. Tanan Hasam Echad Choyer Shechareruhu Mayim. So it need not be an oil which was man-made, even something which is a natural cavity, a natural hole. Echad choyer shechereruhu mayim, which was bored out by water, which created some sort of cavity at the side of the river. Oish rotzim, or creatures. Oish achlosem malachas. Malachas means it was a salty terrain which got cracked and resulted in some cavities being formed within. V'chein midbach avanim, likewise a pile of stones. So although it was piled by a person, but the halal, the cavity found within, was not deliberately formed by a person. V'chein sovar shel kairos, or you have a pile of beams, where you found a cavity within, a halal, and all these things are ma'ahil ala tumah, hovering over tumah. The Tanna Kamma maintains they function like any other oil, despite the fact that some of them are only natural occurrences, some of them were made by a person, but not deliberately to serve as a roof. Still, in all, they serve as an oil with respect to tumah, and anything found within that cavity, together with the tumah, is tummy. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says it needs to be a more prominent type of oil. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kol oil she'nei aseh b'dei adam. Any oil which was not formed by a person, wasn't man-made, and deliberately to serve as an oil, as a roof. Ein oil. So when it comes to tumah, at least, it doesn't work because it's not chashav enough. It can't go ahead and transport the tumah from one side to the other. So it has to be man-made oil. And Rashi says in the bottom line, "B'dei adam miskaven la'aseh oil." It has to be done deliberately to serve as an oil. Says more my taima Rabbi Yehuda. What's the time of Rabbi Yehuda, who requires that it has to be oil b'dei adam with kavana? Yolif oil mimishkan. He applies Gzera Shava from the Mishkan. Ksiva achazois ha'Torah adam kiyamas ba'oil. We find by tumas oil, where the Torah refers to it as an oil. Zois ha'Torah adam kiyamas ba'oil. There's a mace in the oil. Anything within that oil becomes tummy as well. Uksiva hasam we find elsewhere by the Mishkan. Vayifrois es ha'oil ala Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu spread the oil on the Mishkan, and we learn as follows: Malahalim b'di adam. Just as the Mishkan was a man-made structure, Afkan b'di adam, likewise over here, in order for it to be considered oihel, it needs to be b'dei adam. Now the kasha is, we all know the Medrash says, the Kerushim were too heavy for Moshe Rabbeinu to actually position himself. And Hashem tells him, put your finger on it, and it's going to rise on its own. So why does the Gemara refer to it as something b'dei adam? There are two terutzim. One is, he initiated it. So although Hashem completed the process, but it's related to Moshe Rabbeinu's Maaseh. Second teretz is, the Gemara is speaking about the oil which he was porous on the Mishkan. The curtain, the sheet, the material, which that perhaps he did personally, as considered b'dei adam. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we apply Gzera Shava, oil from Tumah to Mishkan. We learn, just as the Mishkan was b'dei adam, the oil of Tumah as well needs to be done b'dei adam. V'Rabbanan, how do Rabbanan respond to this Gzera Shava, oil riba? We find in Parshas Parah, Parshas SUKKAH, many mentionings of the word oil, to be marbi even something which was not b'dei adam. V'savar Rabbi Yehuda kol oil she'ini asay. B'dei adam any oil, is that so? Then according to Rabbi Yehuda, unless it's a man-made oil, it doesn't work. It doesn't function as an oil. Raminu, listen to this Mishnah in Maseches Parah. Chatzeros hayibnuis b'Yerushalayim al gabei hasela. They had courtyards built in Yerushalayim, which were built directly upon bedrock. And Rashi will explain for us, we're speaking about the chatzeros, which are designated for raising children to support the paraduma process. And we wanted to take all these extraordinary precautions to prevent from any possible tumah. So these chatzeros were built on bedrock, which lessened any a chance of any tumah or kaver being beneath the chatzer. Not only that, v'tachteim chalal b'nei kever tohim. They were built upon cavities. They left empty spaces underneath the chatzer, just in case there's a kever tohim, a hidden, concealed kever down deep in the ground. So by creating this airspace, which is considered an oil, and putting the chatzer on top of that airspace, that oil would stop the tumah from spreading upward, and the chatzer would be safe and protected. They would bring expectant women into those chatzeros, they would give birth there. So the babies were safe and secure from the moment of their birth. Umagadlois b'neim shem lapara, where they would raise their children for the sake of the paraduma. Umavian shvarim, and of course the point was to protect them from any tumas meis, specifically tumas meis. And Rashi will bring that they would raise them until they were 7 or 8 years old, in which case they were still pre-tumas keri age. And this actually brings that at the end of the process, when they were going to take care of the parah, they would be tovel them, of course, just in case they touched any tumah. But the point was to protect it from any tumas meis, which requires hazar paraduma, a more complicated procedure, as well as tumas keri, which is a more severe form of tumah yotzis megufa, self-generated tumah. So they protected them from any type of tumah that they could. And then when they were ready to bring the kids to the paraduma process, they would bring umivin shvarim, they would bring oxen. Valgaben deloses, on which they had deloses, doors, platforms positioned. So we have platforms on top of the shvarim in order to create another layer of barrier. We have the shoyer on top of it, another delos, which is an oil, upon which they would seat these children, who were holding earthen cups, which are not makabel tumah, of course. They arrived at the Shiloach spring near Yerushalayim. Yordul techamayim. They would descend into the water, ilum, where they would fill their cups. V'olav yashalahem, and they would go back up onto the doors which were on the oxen. They wouldn't actually leave the protected confines of the doors. They would stay right up there. From his position, he would lower down the kli down into the water in order to stay safe from any possible concealed, hidden caver. Let's go over to Rashi, 2 lines from the top. Says Rashi, what does this term mean? Kol shem kevar tohaim betumas hatohaim shebeshas. Whenever we find this lashon in Shas, it simply means a lashon sufaku, an unknown, concealed, hidden tumah. Ketohaim shenigol, like the depths of the earth which is not revealed. B'nei kevar tohaim, so it would have the chatzeris built on top of sela, top of solid bedrock. B'nei kevar tohaim, says Rashi, shekol irhim supokin. Throughout the city there would always be a chance, shema yesh sham kever, perhaps it's some hidden grave, ve'en lo lemeis chalal tefach, and the kever does not have an airspace, a tefach airspace, in which case the mace is now sort of buried beneath the earth without any room to spread out any halal tefach, which creates an oil. If there's no oil, then that is a tumah ritzutza. It's a squash tumah, but kas v'oilam, which just breaks through anything above it, even though there's lots of layers of earth and stone. It doesn't matter because there's no airspace on the mace. The mace just breaks through l'rakia up to the rakia. So you'll never know if you're actually stepping over a caver of this type. So to take this extra precaution to protect the children from the tumah, they would go ahead and build the chatzeros on kippin, on these sort of arches. Even on the slight chance that there is a caver beneath, the airspace of this dome, of this arch, would stop the tumah from spreading upward. So now the chatzor was safe. They would go ahead and bring the nashim, who would give birth. They would raise them in purity. Now Rashi will explain why. Why indeed did they have to take all these extraordinary precautions, which were not halachically mandated. The Ritva says, min halacha, there's no concern of tumah. There's no grounds for suffix. But Rashi will explain the reason for this is as follows. Because actually they did implement sort of a leniency when it comes to paraduma, and this was meant to counteract that kula, to safeguard the integrity and the impression of kula, which was aroused by the following. Actually, they would make the parah, the kohen who would take care of the parah, they would make him tameh on the day of the process. Immediately after which they would be tovel him. Why would they do this? to undo, to refute the tzdukim. They would claim that only a kohen who's completely tar, who is toivel and experienced nightfall, Herav Shemesh, is suitable for paraduma. Only one who experienced Herav Shemesh has the right to be considered fully tar and get involved with the paraduma. But the Chachamim wanted to negate that opinion. We know that as long as you're toivel, you did what you could. What's up to you? What's in your ability to do? You are yoytze, you're tar enough, even without experiencing Herav Shemesh. And that's already considered a tar enough to do the paraduma. So they used to be matameh him, be toivel him, and he would do the paraduma in that state of Tvul Yom. Given the Tvul Yom kosher b'para, since a Tvul Yom was acceptable for the para, asuba malas harbi. The antidote to that, in order to sort of reestablish the importance of doing the process by tahara, they implemented many extra malas. Kadeshli zalzul bosa, people shouldn't disregard the paraduma and the tahara required for it. Tiknu kol masa parad b'klei glolim, klei avonim, klei adama. Anything involving the paraduma would involve klei glolim, all types of utensils made of animal waste, klei avonim, earthenware, klei adama, made of mud, which were not makabel tuma, shen makabel tuma. So they went to these extraordinary lengths to ensure the proper tahara of the parah, so it sends a proper message that paraduma is meant to be done completely b'tahara. Not only that, for the kohen who was involved in the streifa, his keku leprishas shivas yom, he would have to separate for 7 days. Nobody was able to touch him. He was separated from civilization. As we learned back at the beginning of Yuma. Not only that, we learned mazan olav kol shiva throughout those 7 days. They would apply the paraduma efer on the kohen as well. And part of that process was as follows: these children, described in the Mishnah we just learned, were the ones who would prepare the paraduma water for the kohen for those 7 days. They would fill water upon which they would sprinkle the efer chatos, efer paraduma, and use that water for the parah throughout the 7 days of preparation. And again, on account of this mala and all these precautions that they took, one of which was this concept that the children involved in this process were so carefully safeguarded from any possible tumah. As we learned Tosefta, would raise them until 7 or 8 years old, not past that, which would ensure that they were free of any keri. Now, I saw an interesting thing that apparently this was an ongoing process because they would never know when they needed the paraduma. In fact, it's brought in the Mishnayos that they actually did 7 paradumas throughout the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, and the Mepharshim explained because it was something unique to have a red parah be born, so they took advantage and they would actually jump on the opportunity. Whenever a red parah would be born, they would actually use it for paraduma water and create another supply of paraduma water. So this was an ongoing process that the women who were lucky enough, who volunteered, it was a privilege to be part of this process, they would go ahead and give birth in this chatzar, so that their children should be zoicha to be involved in the preparation of paradum. Continues Rashi, they would bring oxen when they would have to transport the kids over to the shiloach to fill water. They would bring oxen who would be holding these stone kalim. The priest, as we just explained, that the entire process required these types of kalim. According to Tanakama, they would actually go down into the water and fill their kalim, and Rashi explains why. Why would they take a chance, leave the safety of the oxen, which were protected areas, protected from tumah? Why would they have to go down? Because the Tana holds milu be'inon, you have to actually go down and manually fill the kli. That's what's required for the efer paraduma, as opposed to simply lowering down by means of a rope. Tosfos disagrees. He finds many halachas, many mishnah. We find all over that they would actually not need to manually fill the kli. So why would the Tanna Kama tell you to do that? So Tosfos learns that this wasn't the point of machlekes here. Tanna Kama and Rabbi both agreed technically either way would be fine. Tanna Kama felt that this was better for some reason. There's no need to actually keep him on the shore. For that short moment, it was no real chashash of tumah. Whereas Rabbi Yossi says, no, stay on top of the shore. He would actually do it from there. Perhaps there is tumah there, even for that a short time. We're concerned, stay up there and stay safe. Okay, so that's the Mishnah describing the whole event, and it's pretty clear that they would actually travel. They would travel on the oxen, but the oxen weren't enough. They would have to have the glasses on the oxen, which presented as a barrier. It was an oil to keep them protected from any possible tumah below. Says the Gemara, Rabbi disagreed. He said, they would not use these doors. Ela shavarim, just plain oxen. Oxen with wide bellies, which on their own served as a oil to protect the kids from any possible tumah below. Okay, so that's the discussion over there in Para. Says the Gemara, we have a kasha now. V'ashvarim the oil she'ein aseh b'dei adam hu. Oxen are certainly not man-made roofs, oils, tents. And what did Rabbi just say? Rather than using glasses, they use the shvarim themselves. And the kasha is, how can you use an animal as an oil? It's not a man-made oil. Says the Gemara, of Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Amar Belezer, he answered in the name of Belezer as follows: Rabbi Yehuda agrees, if the oil is large enough and is prominent enough, is larger than a tefach. It's kamlei egrif, like a fistful. Rashi brings it's a oversized fist. So now the oil has prominence and chashivas. Now it's different. Even if it's a naturally occurring cavity, it's not a man-made oil. It works on account of its prominence and chashivas. Rabbi Yehuda requires a man-made oil when it's a minimally sized oil, just a tefach. Has an airspace of tefach. The entire oil is just a tefach wide, for instance. But once it's an egrif, the airspace is already larger than a tefach. It's high, and the oil itself is wider than a tefach. It's an egrif. Then even Rabbi Yehuda agrees, is considered a oil and can perform and function just like any other oil. Tanya mihachi. In fact, we have this in a brisa as well. Umoid Rabbi Yehuda b'shkifen u'b'nekiki aslam. All that Rabbi Yehuda mentioned earlier, that only an oil which is aseh b'dei adam works, as opposed to something hollowed out by mayim or shratzim. But it's moida when it's a large-sized cavity, shkifen, a cavity which was generated by boulders which were uprooted from the side of the mountain, or kiki slime, some sort of crevices within the cliff, large-sized crevices. They're considered oil, despite the fact that they're not man-made. And therefore these oxen are considered. Says the Gemara, but what's wrong with the doors? Very delis. The door which is on top of that ox, the Eish Mokamed Groifen, it was very large in size, wide and way off the ground. Uktani, and still, what do we say? Rabbi Yehuda lo hayomivin dlases el shvarim. But to use these doors on the oxen, apparently, as Rashi explains, it's because placing a door on top of an ox to create a barrier is not really a proper oil. Ein derech oil bekach. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda does not give it chashivas as an oil, right? Just as Rabbi Yehuda required something man-made, l'shem oil, as opposed to something which is just a naturally occurring phenomenon. Here as well, if it's not the way you meant to make an oil, a door sitting on an ox, that's not an oil. And even though it's large in size, so you see that size is not a substitute for prominence, for chashivas. Now, if so, why would the ox be considered? an oil. So Tosfos actually learns because the Gemara figures Bali Chayim are choshev. So even though it's not derech oil b'kach, if we speak about chashivas, an animal has chashivas, and the animal itself is called an oil. Rashi explained earlier, by the way, that the reason why the ox is called an oil because it has a shedra, a spine, which forms an oil over the body of the shoyer, and the cavity beneath the shoyer, from the shoyer to the floor, is considered the chalal of the oil. In any case, says the Gemara, if size substitutes for prominence, if once you get past the tefach, you have an egrif in size, you don't need to necessarily have an oil bidei adam. If that's the case, then what's wrong with doors on the animal? So what? It's not derech oil b'kach, but it's big, it's large in size. Even Rabbi Yehuda should consider it to be an oil. Omer Abaye says, Abaye, you're right. Rabbi Yehuda would consider the door as an oil. He's not disagreeing in halacha. He's just saying, look, what do you need it for? Just use the animal itself, which is considered an oil. But certainly, a delis is an oil as well. Although it's not oil chashav, it's not derech oil, but it's large in size. And size makes up for everything else. Rava says, actually, Rabbi Yehuda did not hold of the delis, but not on account of its oil deficiency. Rather, for practical considerations. To keep the children really safe and safeguarded from any tumah. Rava Amar lo yevin dlases kol ikar. Actually, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of the dlases process. Why? Just keep him on the animal. Why? Because once you place the kid on this wide platform, he's going to get all giddy, overconfident. Maybe he'll lean over the door, and he might lean over some tumtumah. So don't place him on something wide, where he'll feel overconfident. Place him on this ox, which is rather narrow, and it's going to keep him in shape, keep him sitting upright, and safeguarded from any tumah. So actually, don't place him on a door, says Rava, but not because it's lacking in its oil capacity, rather because it's going to create that psychological effect, and then the kid's going to lose his, lower his guard, and might lean over v'yitame b'kever atohai. In fact, we have a right to this. Tanika would say the Rava, Rabbi Daimer, they wouldn't use doors. Because when he's sitting on this ride, on this comfortable place, he's going to get overconfident. Rather, they bring these Egyptian oxen, with wide bellies, on which they perched the children, who were holding the Kaiser Shel they arrived at the Shiloh. Yardu milam, they went down, they filled up the cups, va'alu, v'yashlan agabein, and went back up and sat on top of the ox. Okay, says the Gemara. We've just concluded. According to Rabbi Yehuda, an oil is only one which is chashav, man-made, or large in size. If so, I have a kasha. Let's go back to SUKKAH. We learned in the Mishnah that one is not meant to sit under a bed. Rabbi Yehuda says, no problem. He has a story to prove it. Under a bed is not a concern. Now, I agree, a bed is not really a proper oil. It's a temporary oil. It's a kli, comes and goes. But what about its size? There are many greifim in this bed, meaning it's wide and it's off the ground. Utanan, and we learned in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda does not consider it to be a problem. It's not an oil. But Tanar Rabbi Yehuda it was our minute. We would sleep beneath a bed. If they have skin, the presence of skenim, and we don't consider it to be an oil. Says the Gemara, understand, a bed is not a proper oil. But why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda consider it to be a concern on account of its size? And says the Gemara, bed is different. Shani mita hoil ulagaba asuya. Keep in mind, what's a bed coming to serve? Serve as a storage area beneath it? It's coming to serve as a bed. It services the area on top. Ulagaba asuya. If that's the case, we don't consider it to be an oil and it won't interfere with the sukkah. Says the Gemara, Shvar Nami, what about those oxen? Look upon Asuyim. They serve their top. You sit on them, you ride on them. They carry loads, packages, not meant for the space beneath them. So why would Rabbi Yehuda consider an ox as an oil? It's not man-made. So the fact that it's large in size, but it's not meant to serve the area beneath it. Why would it be different than a bed? Says the Gemara, also Ravin, when Ravin came, Amar Belazer, he said as follows: Shani shvarim hoil meginim ala roim. Oxen are different than a bed. Why? Because a shur is used as protection for the roim, for the shepherds. B'chama, b'nei achama, in the sunny season, on account of the sun. U'b'gshamim, b'nei agshamim, in the rainy season, on account of the rain. So, although its primary function is legaba, it's the top surface which is primarily used, but since it has some function beneath it as well, it serves to shield their shepherds, that is enough to give it a din of oil. And again, it's on account of its large size. So put the two together, large in size, and services somewhat as a protector, as a shield, as a shelter, is considered. Let's go back to the bed there as well. If even a residual use, even just a slight a hala service beneath it is considered, here as well, it's meant to protect one's shoes, one's sandals, stored beneath the bed. So its primary function is for its top side, but at the end of the day, it services somewhat as an oil, as a protector. And why is it different than the shur? It should be considered an oil as well. So that's the kasha really. When it comes to a bed, the Reader says it's not meant as an oil, it's not meant as a shelter provider, it's meant to be used as a bed to lie on it. And therefore, it's not an oil. It doesn't interfere with the sukkah. When it comes to the shur, you place the children on top, you protect it from tumah. What's the difference? There as well. Its primary function and use is not for the air beneath it. Elamai, you'll say, a shur protects, but also protects somewhat. So what's the difference between the two? Elama Rava, I'll tell you the difference. Shani Shvarim, oxen are different. The Torah considers them to be an oil. They're meant to protect their innards, right there. Their backs are coming to protect, to provide shelter, to shield their innards. Shenamar Oyru Basar Talbisheni. Eve speaking to Hashem, Hashem, you've enclosed me with skin, with flesh. With bones and sinews, you have sheltered me. So we see that the skeletal structure of a person, and certainly an animal, Taisa says an animal is even better because the back is actually hovering above the rest of the animal, the rest of the goof of the animal. So we see that the atzam is the skeletal structure of a person or animal is considered schach, shield, a protector, a shelter provider. And therefore, says the Gemara, halachically we consider a shur like an oil. A bed doesn't have that mila, and therefore it's not an oil. Rabbi Yehuda learns ur basar talbisheni. What's it going to be malbish? He says the nefesh. That's the main element within a person. His neshama, his nefesh, his spiritual entity is being enclosed and covered by the ur basar. Okay, so that applies to a bal chai, but not to a bed. That's one teretz. Another teretz can be, what's the difference between a shur, which is considered an oil, and a bed which appears not to be considered an oil? We see that you can sleep beneath a bed in a sukkah. Rabbi Yehuda Tamei, says the Gemara. Truth is that a bed is considered an oil somewhat. Why does Rabbi Yehuda not concern himself with a bed in a sukkah? Because he's following his shita. The Amar sukkah there is kvabinen. The sukkah is meant to be a permanent structure, and it won't be negated by merely a bed, which is just a kli which comes and goes. The bed forms a temporary dwelling beneath it. The sukkah oil kva, the sukkah is a fixed structure. And the bed, which is merely oil arai, cannot interfere or negate the sukkah, which is a fixed and permanent place of dwelling. So this teretz is that certainly something which is large in size, more than a tefach, for it has an egroif, has chashivas, even if it's not a proper oil, even Rabbi Yehuda would consider it as such. And that's why the child was safe above that shor. Why then is a bed not a concern in the sukkah? Because it's oil harai, relative to the sukkah, which is oil kavah, and therefore it doesn't interfere. So think more of Rabbi Shimon. What about Rabbi Shimon's shita? The Amar Nami Sukkah Diras Kvabin. Shimon back on Daf Zayin Beis. Well, that his sukkah needs to be fully enclosed and it has to present as a permanent structure. And what does he say in Al Mishnah? He's supporting the Tanakama's shita. You can't sleep under a bed. Apparently, because the bed which is oil arai will nullify the oil kavah. How does it do that? That's why you're right. In Ba Pligi. This is the very point of contention between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Although they both hold that a sukkah is a diras kavah, but there are two perspectives here. Mar savar ose oil arai uvata oil kavah. Rabbi Shimon holds, despite the fact that a sukkah is a permanent oil, the bed which is the oil arai can interfere, can negate. The fact is, you are under the bed. You don't relate to the sukkah. So as far as your personal location, your personal space, you're under a bed. You're not yotzei. Umar savar, as Rabbi Yehuda holds, the bed which is merely a temporary oil cannot come along and annul, nullify, and interfere and cancel out the sukkah, which is the oil kavah. Look, the sukkah determines the status of the entire makom, the entire space within it. It's a sukkah. It's a permanent structure. It's a permanent dwelling. It's all considered sukkah. So even beneath the bed, which is in that makom, is still considered within the sukkah. The sukkah sweeps into it. It draws into it anything in that airspace. So even if you're under your bed, no, you're in the sukkah. The sukkah overrides the bed. What Rabbi Shimon holds, although the sukkah is a diras kavah and has the ability to determine the status of the area within it, that's true regarding the makom. But as far as the personal, the gavra, if he's beneath the bed, he's not really relating properly to the sukkah. He is out of the sukkah. Sort of the sukkah has him, but he doesn't have the sukkah. So we really have three shittas, right? We have the shittas rabbanon hold that a sukkah is a diras harai, and therefore it can't really override the bed, which is also oil harai. So there's a real concern there. That's the shita of Tanakama. Under a bed within a sukkah is out of the sukkah. Rabbi Shimon holds, although the sukkah is a diras kavah, and the whole makom is called sukkah, but when you're under a bed, you're out of the sukkah. That's your personal space. You don't relate. You're not basukkah's teishva. You're not relating to the sukkah to the schach. Rabbi Yehuda holds a step further. He says, once a sukkah is a diras kavah, it establishes a status of the entire halal and airspace within it. It absorbs anything within it, even the fellow sleeping beneath the bed. Okay, so in summary, we learn a shita mechudeshes, or Yehuda shita, that you need an oil chashav for it to be considered an oil to function as an oil. Therefore, he says, when it comes to oil regarding tumah, if it's bidei adam, then, meaning if it's a tefach, it needs to be bidei adam. If it's larger than that, if it's an egroif in size, that has chashivas on its own, and even bidei shamayim is acceptable. We continue with the Gemara regarding the para, the whole process, and at the end of the day we had a kasha as follows. We compared the shivarim, which according to Rabbi Yehuda, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, we consider an oil, as opposed to a mita, which didn't appear to pose any concern in a sukkah. And the question was why? The chayr both are very similar. They're both made legabon. The place of use is on top of the shor, on top of the mita. It's not really intended to provide shade and protection beneath. So why is a shor considered an oil and not a mita? We have two terutzim. Blazer says because the shor is megan on the roya. It protects the roya from the elements, as opposed to the mita, which, although it's going to protect the shoes and sandals, but a mita, in relation to a sukkah, has no value. Because a mita is oil harai, It's not going to be mevatel the sukkah, which is oil kva. Rava's approach was, shvarim are unique. Animals are unique. The Torah considers the skeletal structure of an animal to be a schach. So he's a walking oil. He's inherently valuable. He's considered an oil on its own, and therefore we consider a shur to be an oil and protects the kid who's sitting on top of it, as opposed to a bed which does not have that quality. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Shimon Masa b'tavi avdi. So Rabbi Shimon brought a raya from the story with the servant of Rabbi Gamliel. Tanya Rabbi Shimon misi chasei Rabbi Gamliel lomadnu shnei dvarim. Actually, we learned two things from merely listening in to the discussion between Rabbi Gamliel and the Zkenim. What are the two things? Lamadnu shavadim tu min sukkah. We know that an eved is potter from sukkah. It's pretty clear. And the chiddush is, Tais asks, what's the chiddush? We all know that a mitzvah saseh zman grama applies only to anoshim and not noshim and not to avadim. He says because by sukkah it says teishvu kein taduri, meant to sit in the sukkah in a way which resembles your ordinary dwelling. Perhaps even an isha is included. We learn from Gamliel it's not so. An isha is exempt, and so is an eved. That's number one. Number two, v'lamadnu shayoshin tachas hamita lo yosdei chavase. If one sleeps beneath the bed, it's not yaitze. So Rabbi Shimon is pointing out that there were two halachas learned from the Sikha of Rabbi Gamliel. Says the Gemara, why does Rabbi Shimon choose to describe it as Sichosai Shel Rabbi Gamliel as opposed to Midvarav Shel Rabbi Gamliel? V'leima Midvarav Shel Rabbi Gamliel. Why does Rabbi Shimon refer to it as Sikha? Says the Gemara, there's a lesson in that as well. Musag of Urcha Kamash Malon. Rabbi Shimon is trying to teach us something. He's trying to teach us that not only when a Talmid Chacham is learning and teaching do you learn halachas from him, but even merely listening into a casual conversation can produce lessons in halacha and musar and derech eretz. And that's why Rabbi Shimon refers to Rabbi Gamliel as misichasai rather than midvarav, which would indicate halachas that he was trying to teach. No, misichasai, just listening into the casual discussion, the light-hearted remarks made by Rabbi Gamliel and praising his Evet Tavi, just from that alone we can learn halachas. So really it's a lesson on top of a lesson. In fact, Rabbi Shimon uses the word sicha, that in itself is a lesson. That you meant to pay attention to words of Chachamim. Ki ha the Amar of Achbar Ad. Ve'amar, some say it was the Amar of Achbar Ad. Amarav. Menayin shafilu sicha tamid Chacham tzrichalim. How do we know that even just casual conversations between Talmid Chachamim are some things which are meant to be learned from and paid attention to? Shenema v'alei yibol, even the Allah leaf, something which is just lacking value, just a leaf, layibol won't wither. And the lesson here is that even a sicha of a Talmid Chacham has value and importance from which we can learn halachas, and if we analyze it closely, we can learn derech eretz and midas tivus. Continues the Mishnah. He has a bed with posts, and all he has is schach without any walls. He's going to support his schach on that bed. So the bed is providing a double function, supporting the schach and also providing shelter. It's providing enclosure, walls for the sukkah. Ksher, that's fine. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, no, the schach can't support itself without the bed. It's possible. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's wrong? Says the Gemara. We have two pshata. Pligiba, Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Abba Bar Mama. We have a discussion between these two. Each one provides his reason. Chad Amar, one of them maintained the reason is because it's a mobile sukkah. Sukkah on a bed? That's not a sukkah. And Rabbi Yehuda requires diras kva. That's a problem. The other one explained, because you realize he's positioning the schach on a bed which is makabel tumah, and just as a schach cannot be a kli which is makabel tumah, as we learned earlier in the Masechta, its supports cannot be davar makabel tumah as well. Let's go over to Rashi here. Rashi is around 14 lines from the bottom, beginning with Gemara. She'en l'kva. The sukkah is a mobile sukkah, right? Rabbi Yehuda Tamed, Amar Sukkah, there is kvabina. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to have a fixed dwelling. That's one pshat. The other pshat is shemamida. He's supporting it with a davar makabel tumah, says Rashi. Although, up until this point in the Gemara, we never had a source for anything other than the schach itself. Here it's not the schach, which is makabel tumah. It's only the supporters. Says Rashi, since the ikar of the schach are these ma'amidim, can't stand without them. We consider it as though he's actually being mesachech with something which is makabel tumah. Without the poles, without the supports, without the bed, you have nothing. What is schach? Something which provides shelter and coverage, great shade. Without poles supporting it, nothing's going to happen. So the ma'amidim are considered part and parcel of the schach, and if it's a bed, it's puzzle. From Rashi, it's actually mashma that it's been Torah. The ma'amidim are considered part of the schach. Other Rishonim disagree. They say that it's only midrabanan because it's not schach itself. There's a concern that if the ma'amidim are makabel tumah, this might lead to confusion. Next time, you might use the davar makabel tumah for schach itself. So it's only midrabanan. Nafkamina would be the following case. We actually had a Mishnah back on the Yud Beis Amud Aleph regarding using bundles. Mishnah says you can't use them for schach, the xeris tikra, because you might actually use bundles for a place for drying, not for sale, right? But you can use them v'chulang sharon l'tfanis. You can use them for walls. So, if the pshat that a mamid is considered part of the schach min HaTorah, which is Rashi's pshat, if that's the case, you can't use bundles for walls. What does the Mishnah mean? At the kasha for tfanis, Farshim say, we're speaking that he's using them as walls, but not to support a schach. The schach is somehow getting supported otherwise. Whereas according to the other Rishonim, that a mamid is not really part of the schach, it's only on account of the schach, because it might lead to the schach being puzzle. Well, if it's just bundles which aren't really makabel tumah, it's just a gzera midrabanan, don't use them because it might lead to something inappropriate. It's a gzera, and we don't apply a double gzera, right? A gzera is never applied. So since the whole concept of a mamid of schach is only midrabanan, you can use something which is merely possible midrabanan as a mamid. Okay, getting back to the Gemara. So we have two pshatim with the regarding the psul of the schach on a bed, either because it's mobile or because it's being supported by a kli which is makabel tumah. And Tosfos actually points out that all agree. There's no machlekes that a sukkah needs to be kva, certainly according to Rabbi Yehuda. So the reason of kva is agreed upon by all. Both these shittas in the Gemara agree that there's a problem with something which is not kavua. The other shita is merely adding this additional element as well, even if it's kavua. But if it's something which is mamid, davar makabel tumah, that's a concern as well. Interesting point that Tosfos writes here, that the concept of kavua applies even if it's on top of a agol, on top of a wagon, since it's moving around. It's not called kavua. But at Tosfos, listen to this: if you put a sukkah on a ship, on a sfina, it's okay, even though the sfina is running around. Tosfos says it's urcha b'hachi b'chashiva kva. It's the way it's meant to be. Ship is meant to float on water and move around. That's called kavua, and would be kasha even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, continues the Gemara. Might be now. Is there any difference between the two shittas? Is there any halachic difference between the psul of kavua and the psul of mamid b'davar makabel tumah? Says the what there is. Kigon shenot shvudin shel barzel. Suppose he positioned some metal rods on the ground, v'sich aleim, and put a schach on them. So now he's merely using the bed for his walls, but the schach is standing independent of the bed on those rods. Oh, l'man damar v'shein lo kva, the one that applied the svara of kva, that's only if it's on a bed which is mobile. Hareish lo kva, in this case it's positioned on rods which aren't going anywhere. So schach is kavua. The other shita who says that the problem is because you're supporting it with something inappropriate. In this case as well, he's supporting a schach using rods which are makabel tumah, so it's possible. So that's nafkamina. If it's directly on the bed, all agree it's a problem, either because it's mobile or because he's supporting it with a bed. But if he places his schach on separate rods on the ground and merely uses his bed for walls, then we have an nafkamina. Kavua, it's kavua because the schach is kavua, and that's the ikar component of your sukkah. The schach has to be kavua. But if there's a psul of mamid, well, the rods which are being mamid, your schach are pasal for schach. Your sukkah is pasal. Amar Abaye. I'm going to give you an example, a case where, according to all shittas, you're okay. Schach with a bed, and you're okay. How? Lo shanu. This whole concern is only said ela samach if he actually supported his schach on that bed. Aval sichach al gav hamitak shira. However, if he supports his schach using wooden rods, wooden posts, which are kasha for schach, and he's merely using the bed to serve as a wall, as a doifen, then you're okay. Why? My time of why? L'man damar vishen la keva. According to the sheet of keva, harayish la keva. Now the sukkah is perfectly stationary and still. It's being supported. The schach is being supported by fixed posts. L'man damar v'neshim amida b'davam kabotuma. According to the sheet of kabotuma, well, that doesn't apply here as well. Harayin mamida b'davam kabotuma. Since he's using wooden rods to support his schach, it's okay. He's not being mamid with something to the kabotuma. Okay, so summation. We had a discussion revolving around Rabbi Yehuda Shita in the Mishnah, who doesn't allow placing schach on a bed. We had three cases. If the schach is directly on that bed, it's possible for either one of two reasons. Either because ein lo kva, the bed is mobile, and so is the sukkah, or because he be mamid his schach b'davar makabotum, which is the bed. Now, in a case where he positioned his schach not on the bed, rather on shvudin shel barzel, on metal rods, well, according to the shita of keva, here it's kasha. Schach is fixed in position. According to the shita, that the psul is because mamid b'davar mekabotuma. In this case, it's possible because the shvudin shel barzel supporting a schach on mekabotuma. The Bai concludes with a case which is kasha l'kuli alma. He puts his schach on wooden posts, and he uses the bed for his doifen. In this case, it's certainly kasha, because there's no concern of kviyas. The schach is permanently in place. It's sitting on the kanim shalates, which are planted in the ground. And mamid b'davar kamatuma doesn't apply because we're speaking about wooden rods, in which case they're not makamatuma, they're kasha for schach. So your sukkah is kasha. No time for a brief chazar of today's daf. We began with the Mishnah. We had three sheets. Tanakama maintains if one is yashin tachas amita, he's not yaitze. Rabbi Yehuda says he's yaitze, and Rabbi Shimon holds he's not yaitze as well. And the Gemara, according to one approach, learned as follows: Tanakama holds sukkah is deris harai, any bed which is an oil harai can interfere with your sukkah. Rabbi Yehuda maintains sukkah is deris kva, bed which is merely harai cannot interfere. You're sort of swept into the sukkah because of its permanence. Rabbi Shimon, although he holds sukkah is kava, however, if one happens to be found beneath a bed which is in that sukkah, he doesn't relate to the sukkah. He is out of the sukkah, and he's not yaitz. We proceeded with the machlokes between Rabbanan who hold that even a naturally occurring cavity is considered an oil, which Rabbi Yehuda says it needs to be a man-made cavity to give it chashivas. The Gemara concluded, if it's only a tefach in size, then it has to be made b'dei adam. If it's already an egroif that has chashivas, and the fact that it's larger in size allows it to be even a naturally occurring cavity, and it's considered an oil. Concluded with a disparity between shvarim, between these oxen, where according to Rabbi Yehuda, will consider an oil as well, as opposed to the mita in the sukkah, which is not. Rabbi Lezer's approach was, well, the shur is meant to protect the roya hiding beneath him, whereas the mita, although it protects the shoes and sandals, but in relation to the sukkah, it doesn't really have chashiva, since the mita is an oil harai, it's not going to be mavatal, not going to interfere with the sukkah, which is considered an oil kava. Rava's approach was, a shur is very different. The pasuk describes it as a schach, as an oil, about somas v'gidim, tis soichecheni, that gives it added chashivas, which a bed doesn't have. We learned three things from that incident with Tevi. We learned firstly that an eved is potter from sukkah, beneath a bed is not yotzei, and that sicha of Talmid Chacham has value and should be analyzed closely. We concluded with a machlokes between Tanakam, who allows schach to be placed on one's bed. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. And the Gemara provides two possible reasons: either because it has no kaviyas, it's just mobile, or because he's supporting b'davar kabotuma. Nafkamina would be placing the schach on metal rods. It has kviyas, that would be kosher, whereas according to the Tama, Mamam Kabotuma, here as well, it's puzzle. Conclude with Abaye's case that he's placing a schach on kanim shel eitz. Here, Both concerns don't apply. Number one, it's permanent. Number two, the supports are kosher for SUKKAH, and they're not being mamid b'davar mekabel tumah. Kol tov to you and atzlacha.